Welcome back to the podcast with your host, Samantha.
And I'm Alexa, and we're here to light up your life.
Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with Grant Mitterlehner. He was listed as one of the most admired CEOs by Houston Business Journal this year. Grant is a top executive in the solar industry. He is a Fox business contributor and a prominent entrepreneur in the green technology and crypto space. Under his leadership, MittGroup has achieved remarkable success, becoming one of the nation's fastest growing solar companies with a growth rate of almost 300% in the past 2 years. It has also been recognized as the best place to work 3 consecutive years in a row. Recently, in 2023, Grant also launched Mitt Solar, extending his achievements in the solar sector. So we are so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you guys for having me. It's good to see you guys.
Thank you.
So Grant, so you obviously achieved so much at such a young age. Can you tell us a little bit how you started on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I was obsessed with sports, and I played junior college football in California. And so at 18, I was on a first flight out to California and kind of got to firsthand experience living in a small apartment with a bunch of my teammates, hustling, trying to survive, make money in California. And I just kind of always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and it was just very instinctive and natural to kind of go out and make something of your own, right? And so, as I continued my football career in college and ended up in New York, I was always starting online businesses, doing little side things, and by the time I decided, I want to move back to Texas, I want to focus on business full time. That's when I really started kind of crafting a plan to figure out, how do I build a legitimate business? How do I do something at a really good scale that can make a really big impact? And kind of just at the time that I was in New York, one thing that I kind of learned as I started kind of studying all the different successful people and just entrepreneurs in athletics and music and everything, I noticed a really interesting trend that they were all avid readers. And I was kind of self-complained or proclaimed ADHD. So I was all over the place. I couldn't sit still. So, I was like, well, I hate reading. I just said that. And I don't even know why I said that. It was just something I just assumed because I couldn't sit still. So what I kind of would do is, I was so swamped with school and football and with everything when I was in New York. I lived in a small, tiny, probably smaller than this living room right here, with 4 other teammates. And so I wanted to be outside of the dorm. I did not want to hang out there all day. So I would go sit at a Barnes and Noble and just read business books all day long. And kind of what I would do is just read for 15 minutes, take a break, read for 15 minutes, take a break. And by the time I made it back to Texas and Houston, and I was really going all in on being an entrepreneur, I just felt like I absorbed so much knowledge and so much information and preparation, especially being outside of my comfort zone of being outside of where I was from originally. And that's when kind of everything started turning and started really building what I needed to do to really build a successful business.
That's incredible. And I feel like you read so much and you had to change your subconscious mindset and completely rewire it. So
Yep.
what are some of the tools and skills that you learned when you read those books and applied them?
So a couple things, rewiring, rechanging your subconscious is so key. And the hardest part that I think people have, and this is what I experienced firsthand, is it's really easy to do when life is going really good, or if you're in a really comfortable environment, or if you live in a really great area. It's easy. It's like, it's like going downhill. It's very easy. But it's very difficult when you're going through a lot of stress. Maybe you just had a lot of trauma. Maybe you're kind of in a fork in the road. You don't know what to do in life. That's when it's extremely difficult because, yeah, you can read and say all these positive things, but we can all try to be as tough as possible, but you're still going to have some negative thoughts. And it's even worse if you're having negative experiences that are many times outside of your control. So one thing that I did is, when I was in California, when I was in New York, I was in extremely hyper uncomfortable states. I was not in a positive environment. I wasn't necessarily around the best people. I was having a lot of stress. And so one thing that I would do is find ways, even with a lack of resources, especially at the time. I didn't have finance, a lot of money. I didn't have anybody to rely on. And so what I would do is find ways to put myself in a really peaceful environment, or maybe even an environment that's nice. So for example, when I was living in downtown Brooklyn, I'd get on the subway, I'd go to Fifth Avenue, and I'd go to like a nice hotel or somewhere nice by Central Park, that the most successful and wealthy people in New York, where they were actually surrounding themselves. And I would find ways to read and learn and listen to things and just kind of hang out and surround myself in an environment that I wanted to be in and I wanted to be able to replicate. And so even though I had to kind of go back to an area I didn't want to, if I was consistently putting myself in an environment that I wanted to get to eventually, but at the same time, I was constantly causing my brain to absorb the information and the type of people and the type of knowledge that I needed to create the best version of myself, to think the right way, to be able to change my current, life or whatever, it made it a lot easier. So, and that's the best thing is just find a way to put yourself in the right environment, but then consistently put the right information. And I was telling a lot of our sales teams, we have sales guys all across the country, because we're in residential solar. And the one thing I've told them is consistency is really everything. And it's such a boring way to tell someone how to be successful, because everyone wants to know the hack or the secret. And I'm not sure about you guys, I'm sure you've had this with your podcast, is a lot of times when you ask what made someone successful, it may be inspiring, but many times what they actually did is extremely boring. They were just so relentless and consistent that,
Yeah.
what you say?
I was just saying, yeah, so mundane and routine every single day, just doing it. And you're obviously building your foundation and it's
Yeah,
just keep growing. So you're
exactly.
absolutely right. And I loved how you said, I was listening to Ed Milet's podcast a few weeks ago, and he said he would put himself in places where he could just touch his dream. He would go
Yeah.
to really nice hotels and he would spend his bonus money on that and put himself in those positions to make him really believe that he could achieve that success and he could get there one day. So I think that's such a great tool and great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because when you go to these environments and you talk to these, let's say, especially back then, you talk to these people that are just hyper successful. Oddly, they're great, they're friendly, whatever. But you kind of realize, like, okay, this person seems smart, but they don't seem much different than you and I. When you see it firsthand, like what you mentioned with Ed Milet, is it puts reality into it. It's not just a thought or a dream. And if you're learning the same type of information that the best of the best in the world is learning, you're in the best environments, you're really turning your wheels and you're really thinking differently. That's when everything starts to change, because your thoughts change, your reactions and your personality changes. The world's a reflection of you. Everyone has their own problems. No one woke up thinking about you, judging you this morning. Everyone's too busy with their own life. But when you do communicate, when you are in that job interview, when you're meeting an investor, when you're trying to close a deal, when you're trying to grow your business, if someone's going to go work at your company, if someone's going to do a deal with you, it's not necessarily because they think you're just the nicest person ever. It's because they think that it's going to add some type of value to their life. They see you as a person. It's like, I want to be around this person. Samantha's a stud. I want to be around Samantha. If I'm around her, I could do something I've never done before. I want to work with her. And when you start realizing that, it's just so interesting when you commit to consistently just growing yourself every single day. You wake up 6 to 12 months and you're like, man, why is everyone treating me differently? Why am I suddenly getting all these great things? And it's just because you're better now. You're an improved version of yourself.
That's
Yeah.
so true.
I was listening to Jay Shetty earlier this week, and he talks about the 3 C's, which are coaching, community, and consistency. And a lot of what you just said was obviously the consistency, the community, and being around like-minded individuals. But
Right.
did you have any coaching, or did you have any mentors or people that you were inspired by?
Yeah, great question. So I always kind of longed for this amazing mentor that would just come into my life and show me the way. That would have been incredible. I didn't have one, and oddly, it ended up working for my benefit. And kind of the way it did is one, it allowed me to be myself and guide my own path, because I think the information that you prevent yourself from hearing is, I think, even more important than just reading or listening or learning a bunch of wrong or really good information. Because, for example, if you had the wrong mentor, that could really set your life back. And so what I did is I almost kind of created my own fake mentor by studying a few people that I wanted to train my mind to think similar to. And it kind of, what I did is I just started studying the best people, the best CEOs in the world. Tim Cook, Elon Musk. At the time when I started studying him was right when they came out with the Model S. So it was actually all the stuff before that. So it was right before Tesla was even a thing. Everyone thought they were going to bankrupt. And studying him and studying Steve Jobs and studying a lot of the most successful speakers and people that were just changing the world. And what I thought is, okay, I don't have a perfect mentor that I can talk to, that I can pick up the phone and call this billionaire, but I can listen to every single interview, book, autobiography, and watch their actual moves and actions to what they're doing in their current situation and current business. If I get so much of that information, I almost can kind of make them my mentors in a weird way. Because if I'm only hearing information from the smartest people in the world, and I'm eliminating the advice from basically everyone else, I can start, I'm not going to necessarily become that person, but I could become the best version of myself and hear the best information possible. So I just try to control the information pool to make sure it was coming from the best. And what I have found is, while I couldn't have a great mentor there, as you grow and as you develop, you start having really, really successful people that you just become friends with because you're kind of just like them. And that's when you can kind of feed ideas off of them and learn from their experiences too.
What would you say would be one of the commonalities between all the people that you study there? Like one thing, if you had to pick, that made them successful?
So they all had different personalities, but the most common thing is they're just absolutely obsessed with whatever they do. And that doesn't always mean that they were just super passionate about it, but they were just obsessed with achieving their goal. And many times this caused them to be outlandish or to be rude or to be crazy at times, but they were so hyper obsessed with achieving whatever they wanted to do and whatever that specific goal was, that nothing could get in their way. And, it's running a business, especially. I always tell people is 97%, if not more, of people should not run a business. It looks great on Instagram, but you are just constantly solving problems all day long. And if you are perfect, you do everything right, you still have a higher chance of failure than success. And so you have to be so mentally tough and have unbelievable perseverance, because there's so many moving parts. And I always say let's say you have 20 people that work for your team. Let's say that you grow that team, you make them super talented, you have a great operation. What's so difficult is 2 months from now, even if you have those same 20 people, they are not the same 20 people. 1 or 2 of them got a divorce. 3 or 4 of them was all focused on work, and now they just met the love of their life, and now all they care about is that. 4 of them, I have one guy that just jumped on that was off for 3 days because he just had a newborn baby girl. And you're always having a different circumstance. Even the most controllable part of the business, which is our employees, that's always changing. And we haven't even talked about the economy. We haven't talked about the market. We haven't talked about competitors. So if these people had to be so perseverant and focused and determined to be able to find solutions to these problems and ultimately be successful and get ultimately the right people on their team to give them the best chance of success.
In the book Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill, he said you have to have a burning desire if you want to. So just like you were saying, you have to be absolutely obsessed and immersed in what you're doing. So just really wanted to highlight that. It's very true.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just so important that you have it. And if you don't, you should either be doing something else, or you need to be on someone's team who does have that, or it's going to be very, very difficult to do something at a massive scale.
I couldn't agree more. Definitely.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about your mentors, but we both experienced too growing up. We had friends and family who weren't so supportive of us. So did you experience that in your journey? Did you have your family or friends there that were supporting you, or did you find they were doubting you and, really questioning the success that you wanted to build for yourself?
Yeah. So what's difficult is when you grow really quickly. So I was talking about my journey of reading and just committing myself to really improving over these like couple really rough years in college or whatever. What happens is you start to really outgrow the people that you grew up with, which is extremely uncomfortable for them and you, because the conversation changes, your interests change, and so it's difficult, right? And what I learned is, yes, that I had many people that I kind of just got to the point where I didn't tell them the things that I wanted or the things I was working towards. I just learned that they have a different life, they have different goals, they have different ambitions and different thought process of what they can achieve in life. And trying to get them to support me or convince them that this makes sense or that they should do it is just not what I was put here to do, right? And many times we think that we need their approval when in reality they're made for one specific thing, or they're made to be a certain way, and you need to just let them be who they are and focus on your own, your own goals. And one thing I've learned is, you can get great advice, you can read tons of books, like I'm saying, and I've learned so much that way, but nothing's ever guided me more than my intuition. And no one knows more about your own situation, your skill sets, your capabilities more than yourself. And sometimes if you kind of quiet your mind and look at everything and you listen to your gut, because if it's guiding you to a certain direction or a certain industry or to do this thing, you're living your life as you every single day. Who would be a better person to guide you if you're really working hard and you have good intuition? So that's why I say is it's more important to eliminate the wrong information than add a bunch of good information. And so if this person, let's say your friend group, is not either in the arena that you want to be in or heading in that trajectory, do not talk to them about business. You can be friends with them, but do not tell them about your work. Don't talk to them about everything. You'll gain people's respect as you achieve things. And there's times I had bad relationships and different things. They just literally didn't believe in me. And I thought that, but what I've found is they were just so stressed about their own life, and they saw someone that was ambitious and confident and trying to make something happen. And it kind of made them feel insecure. And that was my mistake of, like, that person was going to be like that regardless. But I was mistaken to think that they're meant to be cheering me on and supporting me along the way. I'm not going to get that from them. And as an entrepreneur, or if you're a CEO, or if you're running your own business, you get that from yourself. You don't have someone to call necessarily, maybe a mentor, but at the end of the day, the decision falls on you. And so many times, while that was difficult early on, it also helped me develop and grow and start being and surrounding myself around people who are on similar journeys to me and support and understand how difficult it is to do what we do. And that's when that kind of played out and ended up working out really good. So it's just all about perspective.
That's interesting you say that. So we had Greg Reed on our podcast. He wrote 3 Feet from Gold, Thoughts Are Things with Bob Proctor. And he was saying he's writing this new book. And he said that success is a subtractive equation. So like you were saying, looking at your life and seeing what you can subtract or eliminate and really fuel it with things that you should be focusing your attention on. So I love that. That's great.
It's insane. You think, well, if I just start doing all these things, like for example, he's like, okay, I'm going to go work out 5 days a week now, but you eat horrible all day long, you're not going to see any benefits. And we don't realize how much wasted energy we spend thinking about this bad relationship that you're in, these toxic people that you work with. And, I'm all about putting our people first and equipping them in any way. But I've told this to my leadership team, and we're talking about management and how to recruit the right people. And I was talking to there's a CEO in Austin. They run one of the largest dermatology offices in Texas and the United States. They do almost $1 billion in sales. And he was asking me, he said, Grant, how do you handle people that are just consistent low performers. They have bad attitudes. Like, how do you fix them? And I said, and I used to be, that was my thing. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to get them on the right path. And I finally realized, I said, you don't, you fire them. That's it. You get rid of them and you go get people who don't have that. And you're every time I've removed the wrong person from my life, or we fired or let someone go at my company, I never regretted doing it. I just regretted not doing it sooner, because every time our production, our efficiency, our morale, our culture improved. And so if a simple way to do this is, does going to this place or being around this person, does this make me better or improve my life in some capacity? If the answer is no, you should probably question yourself and go, is this worth my time? Does this make sense to do this? Because if it isn't, all it's going to do is waste finite energy that you could have directed into something that was going to make you, your family's life, or just the people lives around you better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I definitely talked to my team about that too. It's like, take inventory of what really fuels your energy and makes you feel good inside. And then also, like you were saying, what diminishes it, what subtracts it and makes you feel negative. So yeah, that's so true.
Absolutely. Cool.
We wanted to touch more upon, you built your business so fast, and, like, success loves speed. So how did you do that? How did you go from, just starting your business to 3 years later, I guess, in the bio, it said that you were named best workplace 3 years in a row. Like, how did you be able to do that?
Yeah. So what I've learned is, when it comes to building a business, or even if you're just a leader or manager, is systems and processes are everything. And you can't motivate your way to success. It's great. It's good to have your team inspired, but you have to create, building a business, managing a team, scaling something is basically building a machine, like an engine that's running. And it has to, just like a car has to be able to run no matter if it's 100 degrees outside or it's 32 degrees outside. It has to get you from point A to point B. And running a business is very similar. You're going to have different climate, different obstacles. And so you have to build and construct systems and processes that everyone in the company, and that includes technology, but every person that's in, follows this system and this process that creates the right output. And so as you're scaling a business, it's simply just re-engineering and reconstructing that process and making it more efficient, and then getting people that are more talented and that have more capacity to create more output of the business. So for example, let's take in terms of restaurants or franchises. Anytime, if you guys have ever seen the movie The Founder, and it's talking about McDonald's and how he came in, Ray Kroc came in, and it was rough how he did it, but he ended up scaling McDonald's into the biggest fast food brand in the world. What's so difficult is there's so many incredible restaurants in the world, incredible ones, and they have one location, or maybe they have two, but it is nearly impossible to scale to thousands and thousands and thousands of locations while keeping that same culture. I was listening to a speech, it was an interview, Tony Robbins, you guys should listen to it. He was interviewing the chairman of Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A is now, I believe, the third largest fast food restaurant in the United States, if not number 2. And they've grown tremendously. Their financials are unbelievable. And if you know anything about Chick-fil-A, everywhere you go, it doesn't matter where you're at, you say, thank you, they go, my pleasure. They have incredible people. Yeah, it's fantastic. Everyone loves Chick-fil-A. And what they've done is they've been able to replicate to the T these exact systems, and also vetting processes of how they get their operators. It's easier to go to Harvard than to become an operator of one Chick-fil-A. It's nearly impossible. And they have so many different requirements that match the profile of the type of people and the type of culture that they want to replicate in their business. And they are hyper obsessed with maximizing that, getting the right people in and putting them into this machine that is consistent and replicable. And if you've seen the movie The Founder, as they started scaling McDonald's, he would go visit these different franchises, and suddenly one would be selling tacos, and suddenly one would start doing this completely different other menu. And then you'd go to this next one and there's trash everywhere. So they had to create systems and structures that eliminate all of that to create consistency that the business can replicate and grow consistently. So that's what I had to learn is I can't just do things on my own. I got to hire really talented people, and no one is going to feel motivated every single day of the week. But if they get into a consistent routine and process, that's when you can start having consistent results that can help you have a 300% increase in a couple of years by just doing those things and keeping things simple.
And I'm sure there were some struggles and areas of opportunity along the way. I'm sure, you've achieved so much, and we keep on saying it at such a young age, but there must have been some sort of challenges along the way. And it sounds like you needed to persevere and you needed to have that consistency to really keep yourself going. But can you tell us about how you were able to overcome some big challenges, and, what would you recommend to our listeners, how they can apply those same tools in any you face?
Yeah. So we had a million and one headaches, stressful times, cash flow issues, everything. And so I can tell you how to do it. One is, if you've never really been through anything extremely hyper stressful before, it is one of the most difficult, but also most beautiful experiences because it causes you to stretch. One thing I always tell people is, if you think that you want more out of life and you cannot handle the current problems that you're handling or you're having, then you probably, if you even got what you wanted, you would lose it so quick it felt like you never had it before. So you got to be able to handle more to be able to produce more output. And so I'd been through so much stress, and from the time I went to college to dropping out and my credit's not being accepted at U of H, and being broke and having to figure out everything, starting the company from scratch. There's so much stress that when I was in the business, a lot of times, because I was in control and I trusted myself, I was able to handle things. But what's so important is being decisive is better than being right, because many times you're not always going to be right 100% of the time. But if I make a decision like this, the other person takes them 2 weeks, and I'm wrong 2 or 3 times, and by the 5th day, I've already figured it out, I'm still a week and a half ahead of the competition or the other person. And so I can think of the first year we grew so fast. It's like, everything you touch turns to gold. Everyone's all excited. And I'm like, we got to grow. Let's expand to Dallas, expand to Austin. And next thing you know, I'm hiring too fast. My systems break down. I had a current infrastructure that could not support the next level. So what I didn't understand is, to get to a next level, and for example, to build a bigger building, let's say you had a mid-rise 4 or 5 story apartment building, and you want to crash that down and build a 20 story or 50 or 100 story. You can't just build up on that same ground. You have to go deeper and build a strong foundation to support the building. And so I didn't realize that. I'm like, go, let's go. We got these managers, we got everything. Everyone loves working here. This is amazing. Kumbaya. You hire all these people, conversions drop. We go negative cash flow. I scale too quick. Within 2 months, we went from being unbelievable profitable to being negative cash flow. Almost, it was like 100 grand or something, which at the time was just insane amount of money. I was like, don't know if I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Cut all the fat. We fix everything. I realized I did not have the systems and processes and technology and support and management in place to handle a business that was 2 times bigger than the current output. So I got rid of all of that fat. I admitted and learned my lesson as fast as humanly possible because I had no choice at the time. Then built that infrastructure, and it was almost effortless to double our size because we had the foundation to support it. We just needed to keep doing the basic, simple things that we were already doing. And so at the time, that was so stressful, and it was not something I wanted to deal with, especially having all this initial success my first year. But what it did is it helped me handle more. And I always tell this to CEOs and business owners, or even just leaders, is each year, if you're getting better, you're going to realize and see that things that used to keep you up at night or stress you out kind of become a joke to you. it's kind of so small of a problem. You're like, I know how to handle it, or that's no big deal. And that's what happens as you grow and as you develop and as you're doing the right things. But you have to have, you're not always going to feel the right way. And if, as a leader, if you only operate off of your reactions and your feelings, it's going to be very difficult to be sustainable. You're going to get taken out pretty quick. And so you have to be able to make sound and concise decisions that benefit the business and the people around you, or the market's going to expose you and someone else is going to beat you.
How did you create that emotional resiliency? Because I know as an entrepreneur and business owner too, it's like you have to be very, very particular about the way that you think about things, and you can't let your feelings get in the way, and you have to make those quick decisions. So how did you gain that emotional intelligence?
Mhm.
To do that?
So I think it's, for example, a lot of people say, hey, Grant, how do I become better at sales? And I go, you sell, you don't read a book.
Practicing, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, the bullets have to be flying. Like, you have to get in the ring, you have to get punched in the face as a boxer. You can't just sit there and punch bags all day. That's not how it works. The bag doesn't punch back. So you have to experience it as much as possible. And then one thing I could tell you also is that spend time. We get so busy, and this is not just entrepreneurs. Let's say you have kids and you have a job and you're busy and you got all these friends in life. We don't spend enough time actually kind of thinking back on our week, thinking back on our day, and spending time alone. And the founder of Chick-fil-A, the original founder, he actually had a thinking schedule, which is pretty interesting. And so he scheduled out segments in his day and in his week. And every month, I think it was for a day or something like that, that he would spend by himself, and he would just only think. That's it. And so each week, and for me, it's Sunday. I kind of protect my Sundays. I try not to do anything, go out, see much people. And I'll kind of read, listen to stuff, but I'll think back on the week and go, what did I do good? What went wrong? What do I need to adjust? What changes do I need to be made? And really successful entrepreneurs are kind of have a light paranoia about them. They're kind of always a little bit irritated in a weird way. Like, there's always something that they got to fix. A healthy balance, right? And spending that time helps me really look at things for what they are, because I'm not getting blown up by a manager or a sales rep or customers or issues. I can just actually sit there and think in peace. And so if you're thinking through your decision making and what went right, what went wrong, while the bullets are flying during the week, you're going to get better and improve at such a rapid pace that you'll be able to not only survive, not only make payroll, but be profitable, be successful, and have hyperscale growth and success in whatever industry that you're in, because you're really taking time to evaluate and think through things.
I think that's so important to really evaluate and to look back to show and reflect where you were and where you are now, because I feel like so many times when you do build that success, it's like you want more and more and more, and you have to take a chance to look back and say, wow, I've already accomplished so much in my life. Yeah. And so I've had to really take inventory of that, because I'm so hard on myself, and I know you are as well. We just want more success and we want to do things better and bigger, which is great to have that vision, but you also need to be humble and realize, where you came from.
Sure.
Yeah, what you said about just really controlling your time and protecting your Sundays and really having that time to yourself to think and reflect. Mm-hmm. I think it's so important. I think even like Tony Robbins talks about priming and getting ready for your day. I get up super early just so I can get started on my day, but that's because I get to have peace and quiet. I'm not getting blown up by all the other things that immediately, once 9 o'clock hits, I can have some time to think about, what do I want to achieve that day? What do I want to accomplish? Check my email and do things in peace and quiet. So I think it's so important to reflect, plan, really kind of just coordinate and get your schedule organized to what you want to achieve and really be focused, because otherwise, how are you going to achieve what you need to, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we're curious to know too, like, do you have that morning routine, or do you set up a nightly routine before your day to make sure that you're, running your business efficiently and doing everything you need to do? Yeah.
So when it comes to the morning, I just wake up and I go. So my biggest rule is I got to get 8 hours of sleep or I don't think right. I'm hoping one day I wake up and only need 5. That would be amazing. But I need 8 hours. So I focus on that. I'm up at 7, I get ready, and I'm basically I go. The time that I reflect and kind of spend time either alone or relaxing or kind of thinking about things is at night. I will say something that I've implemented is affirmations. I write down all the things that I have goals of and want to accomplish, and I write them in present tense. So the one thing that I do that's like the smallest routine is before I finally go into my first meeting or do whatever, I'll just read through those. And then before I go to sleep, I'll read through them as well. And throughout the day, I'll randomly just say them in my head like a crazy person. And all I'm trying to do is just I'm trying to get to my subconscious to really start thinking in different. And it's so weird when I'm really focused on that and I'm doing it enough, things just start flying out of thin air. Success happens. A sales team that was struggling somehow wakes up one day and figures it out. And yeah,
It's amazing what your mind can do and how powerful just believing in yourself and what you're capable of, and like how just things can change. It's amazing.
And Tony Robbins does that. He calls them incantations. And he's like, I was driving in my car yelling and screaming these incantations, he calls them, because he likes to feel the feelings when he's doing the affirmations. So it's really true. I actually created a journal and I have all of those in there.
That's awesome.
We both use it. We
There
use
you go.
Samantha's journal. We'll definitely send you a copy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. Well, this has been such a great episode. We thank you so much for your time. So for our audience, where can they find you? I know you're on YouTube, Instagram. You also have your own podcast. So if you can share a little more about that.
Yeah, sure. So all my social media channels are just at Grant Mitt, GrantMitt. The Grant Mitt podcast. So it's similar to some topics that we covered, but kind of more in-depth stories and things like that. And you can find that on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, so you guys can find me, post a ton of short form content, anything related to business and entrepreneurship. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Much success to you guys and hope to talk soon.
Yeah, for sure. Have a great day. And we're sending our listeners all so much love and light.